going now because, okay, Clay's got his setup. This is how the process starts for planting. We've got seeds everywhere. These are just the end of the seeds. So,
well, these are seeds we collect. I have some triple crop tomatoes. These are a climbing or a towering tomato. They can get us to 12 to 15 feet high.
okay, well before
There's something that came from Burgess.
before we go any further, maybe I'll turn another light on because Clay's getting ready to go out and work and I'm holding him up here.
But I bought this because Ruthie wants some marigolds, and we had marigold seeds. So
well, let's talk about the process for people that are newer of how we go about deciding what goes and gets planted and all that. I
well,
was told
marigolds help keep bugs off in your vegetable plants. So if you have tomato plants, you put a marigolds around them, and it keeps some of the bugs away from your tomatoes.
Actually, that's not what I meant. What I meant. Our process of
Of what we decide.
well, how? Okay, we first of all we'll get all the seed magazines.
All right, I have.
Here, sit down here and talk, sweetie. We get
I
all,
saved some seeds from the Mini Bells peppers,
oops, I turned the light back on.
and I'm going to plant some of those today. I don't normally plant peppers because we go to the food auction and they're cheap enough to buy them during the season. So it's kind of useless to spend our time and energy growing them. Same with cucumbers, and zucchini is so cheap that when you go to buy it, it's...
See, Clay's been doing this stuff for over 40 years. So, truthfully, we got like the bugs out. So we don't plant like silly crops that are waste of money and time and effort. This way we can concentrate on doing things that we haven't done where we can waste our time there, right?
Well, during the growing season, tomatoes are not cheap no matter when you buy them. So that's why we plant a lot of tomatoes. I love cherry tomatoes as far as just coming, when I get home from work, I'll go out and check my garden and pop a few for a snack before dinner. And as far as eating tomatoes, we like the Romas and the Rutgers tomatoes and things like that for sandwiches and cooking. So, and because tomatoes aren't so cheap during the season, that's why we grow a lot of tomatoes. As far as bok choy, you don't find that. You get it in the store, but it's not a cheap vegetable either. So we grow bok choy.
Can I interrupt for one moment?
Yep.
I just want to say this. Okay, so just to kind of give you a blueprint, because this will kind of show you what goes on. Clay and I will be discussing this like all through the winter. We'll say, well, what about planting this? What about planting that? What about this animal? What about that animal? We got some of the newness of, because we've been married for 5 years. So, like, Clay let me do a lot of things because Clay's an old farmer type, and he'll let me make my mistakes and hang myself. But here's where I go with that. So we start off by discussing all winter, then we get the seed catalogs, then Clay sits down and he'll write up plans, he'll go through all the seeds. I've learned, like I said to Clay this year,
Well, we also, what I do with the seeds, as far as the seeds go,
yeah.
We'll go to, say, Family Dollar or Dollar General or Real Deals or some of those places, and I'll take an envelope, mark what seed packs are in there, and I'll put the different cabbage. This one has cabbage and kale.
Now here's the question. Will we grow cabbage?
Eventually, but these seeds are good for years.
Will we grow kale?
Eventually, but not right away
Will we
because
grow-
you can get it cheap enough.
Will we grow zucchini?
No, zucchini you can buy cheap, but what
Will we-
will you stop and let me finish?
Yes.
You may not always have that opportunity. Maybe someday that cabbage, just say cabbage or cauliflower or whatever, is the big seller of that season or the season before, and you can't touch it for a cheap price. You may want to go back and use those seeds for your next garden.
Okay, so you
So that's why I save the seeds. The box stays dry. The seeds are nice and dry in a dark spot, cool dark spot.
how long do those seeds last?
They will last.
Indefinitely, probably.
The Chinese have been planting seeds that have been stored for hundreds of years. The Egyptians have honey that is they find in the tombs. It's still edible. And how long have the Egyptians been gone?
Well, here's another question.
Just because the government puts an expiring date on things doesn't mean that's law.
Oh, now, does it matter where you buy your seeds?
No, because if you can find a bunch of seeds, now we find seeds, and the best time to buy seeds is not during planting season. When planting season's over and Walmart or Kmart or whatever store you have around you will have seeds for 20 cents a pack. That's the time to buy your seeds. That's the time to buy your soil and store it for the spring, because once spring, right now, is beginning of April, end of March. This is where they're selling their soil, and they're getting top dollar for it. If you want to buy soil, and you want to buy peat moss, and you want to buy whatever else supplies you need for your gardening needs in the spring, buy them in October and November or December. Buy them long before the season starts. That way you get them at a cheap rate. They'll tell you, oh, this soil's frozen. Well, yeah, it's going to be frozen. It's November and December. But it's going to be thawed out by spring when you need it. So buy it when it's cheap and store it. If you got the place to store it, a garage, a building, an old car. Open the old car, throw it on the back seat till spring. There's plenty of places to store stuff. Take an old garbage can, dump them into an old garbage can, put the lid on it until spring. Buy cheap, buy out of season is probably the best advice I can give you.
So you want to really prepare, like, all year long.
Yes.
This isn't something you just...
It's the same as if you were going to put a swimming pool in, for an example. Buy your swimming pool supplies, your chlorine, your tablets. Buy it in the winter when no one has a swimming pool. You'll find it's cheaper. That's just an example. But for gardening and all that, you buy it out of season. If you buy it during season, it's going to be expensive.
Tell them what we are planting to give them an idea what we feel we need to plant and why we don't plant, like we don't, like even green beans. We've been fussed about green beans. And Clay's like, don't do the green beans. Why don't we do the green beans?
Because you can buy the green beans cheaper. Things like these mini bell peppers, the sweet peppers, you can buy them in the store, but they're getting expensive. So we're going to try planting a few of them. Tomato, like I said, tomatoes, bok choy, Chinese cucumbers, things like that you can't get cheap. They're the things to plant. In the fall, there's no sense of us growing carrots, for example. In the fall, during harvest season, you can get a 5-pound bag of carrots for $2. Can't grow them for that.
And where do we store this stuff? Like the onions. How long have those onions been lasting, and how did we store them? And where are we? This is...
During the years, I have been saving, and you probably can go buy them.
And the bananas.
The netted onion bags. When I buy onions in the fall, I put them into the netted onion bags, or 20, 40-pound bag, empty bags, and I hang them from the rafters of the garage because the garage is nice and cold, and being hanging, you don't have to worry about mice or anything getting into the bag and chewing up your potatoes, for example, your onions. We had sweet potatoes for months.
The bananas too.
The onions, we're still using up the onions in the garage.
Bananas will turn black, but they're white inside.
Bananas will turn black on the outside, and they'll look like they're rotten, but they're not. They're just
they're
just
nice
as
and crisp.
they're just as good as if they were yellow after they've been stored where it's cold. So there's things that you can store, rutabagas or different squashes and things like that, and use your garage for a cold room, as long as you don't have a lot of windows where it lets the sun in. A nice cool and dark place, and they store very well.
And if you can get them cheap, we get them in the beginning of fall, and they last all winter. And just about the time it heats up, it's just about the time you're done. And the more years you do it, you kind of know the heat's coming, so you get rid of the stuff before it starts to grow on its own. And if it grows on
And
its
if it
own,
starts to,
plant.
if it starts to grow, cut the potatoes up, and new potatoes will come out of the eyes of the potato.
But you really don't want to grow potatoes either, unless it's something you're doing for fun.
I don't grow potatoes because you can buy them cheap enough.
Some things because you know.
You just have to use your common sense, going to the grocery store and seeing what is high priced and what is it you can get locally cheap. If you can get it locally cheap, don't bother with it. Buy it locally cheap. It helps the economy. It helps the farmers out there that are growing for roadside stands. And grow your own things that are a little more expensive.
But this is good advice because a lot of people want to get into homesteading and they do silly things because they don't know they can use their money for better things.
Yeah, you have to. It's like they want to have a cow so that they have their own milk.
Well,
yeah, which is fine, but right along with chickens and everything else, you still have to feed these animals, and that's what's expensive.
You know what we have to make? And I guess it's a good point to bring out. We have to make laundry soap. And here's the thing with the laundry soap, guys. We don't boil it. We have 4 powders. We mix together. The end. It lasts us like a year. It's like 2 cents a load.
It costs $13 to make a bucket full of it.
It lasts us a year.
And it lasts us a year.
But the thing about
so
it
for
is,
$13 is less than $1 a month, or a little more than $1 a month.
we have to do a video on that. But those are the things that we're trying to bring to you guys. Things that are just like 4 powders. Practical, down to earth, where you're not like dehydrating versus canning some of the things. Canning, you have to have other jars, we do can, but we don't can everything, because what happens when I say to you, let's can certain things, you're like, it's cheaper. Cheaper to go to the store and just buy it.
Yep.
And then to go.
Just use your common sense.
With that, then let's walk outside because you're going to start your planting.
I've got to mix up some soil for the greenhouse.
And I'll do another video on that too, but we'll walk outside for a second because we don't live on a lot of land, but we just use what we have. It's a little messy in here. We're cleaning out. That's where it's little, if you saw the previous video, I got some boxes and stuff, cleaning up our office a
Going
little
out the
bit.
back door because it's slippery going down that hill.
Well, I'm going to go down the hill. You're going to go out that way.
All
just
right,
because
watch,
I'm...
You're careful, don't get...
Yeah, I know. So, you know, I just want to kind of let you see, we live, like, we have a busy road, and, you know, we just use what we have, and it really does help a lot to just, we live smarter, and just because somebody's homesteading or farming or whatever they want to call it, I mean, you got to use some wisdom, because when you throw money down the toilet doing silly things, I mean, if it's fun for your family and it's something that you're enjoying, that's fine. But if you're doing it for economic reasons, you may say, wow, I don't think I want to do that. Like right now we got a lot of chickens, but we enjoy that. You know, we don't need all those chickens, but we enjoy it, and that's the fun that we can put in the chickens, the things we didn't really care about.
The snow would be gone.
Yeah, so now we finally have a day with almost all the snow is gone.
My horseradish is coming up nice.
Oh yeah, the horseradish is coming up.
And I grow that in a planter.
So we just want to show you some practical things. Believe it, Clay had some fun with me in the beginning. He let me try out some of my
I got to get
bright ideas.
This mess cleaned up.
Yeah, and we have a lot of messes right now. It's the beginning of the season. We just try to show you what it's really like, rather than try to, you know, we don't edit our videos. Not saying it's wrong. We just try to show you what it's really like for us. You may have a whole different agenda. Doesn't mean we're 100% right. That's for sure, because we have a lot to learn. A lot to learn. So you can be doing this for 80 years and still have things to learn. If you think you know it all, then you're pretty much not there.
I've got this bucket of soil.
Okay, you're going to do the soil video now? How we mix the soil?
I'm going to go up there and mix it, yes. But I want to mark my bok choy before I forget it.
So we just got this little greenhouse that Clay built. We had a couple comments from Cattle Panel, and it's not a really big greenhouse. It's big enough for 2 people. You know, for our little family, it's probably big enough for a family of 5 or 6. And after he's done, I'm going to be doing my African violets in here. I do African violets as a hobby of mine. And Clay's heard a lot about my African violets. I had all big plans of all these perennials I was gonna plant and all this kind of stuff, and I decided, what did I tell you, honey?
I don't know.
You don't know?
You tell me a lot of things I don't.
I'm staying out of the yard.
Too busy.
He's too busy.
Keeping my mind straight on all this stuff.
Yeah,
Next project's getting the chicken sorted for the auction.
yeah, we gotta do that.
But I've got to mix some more soil. And I might as well do that right now while you're here.
Well, I'm gonna change the video up for that. You guys can laugh at us because I come from a business background. Clay comes from the farming, but we're putting it together and it's working.
Little babies looking for food.
Yep, these guys are all coming out. They run out when they hear us. It's early, guys. This is early morning. They'll get tons of snacks. Especially today because I'm cleaning out the refrigerator. Chickens eat anything. So are you gonna do the soil up there? You gonna do it right up there? Okay, guys, listen. I'm gonna stop this because I want to put a new title on the next video. And so I'm gonna stop it. Look at this messy, filthy, dirty porch. Which I'll have to get out here and do it.
Spring's coming.
Oh yeah. Okay guys, I'm gonna get off this and get a new video. Please like, subscribe. And it's been messy and I think we have a leak up there. Water's been coming down.
It might be.
Okay, anyway, I'll be back for the next video and you can find out what this thing is for. Woo, it's 3D. God bless.